the market falling back yet again yesterday. Run us through how you're reading market activity right now.
Hi, Alicia. It's actually an interesting time for the market. What we've seen is in the last week and a half, some level of increased activity in terms of volume and value of stocks traded. A bit of analysis will tell you that some of that trading volumes have actually come from a number of international investors who are starting to look at the Nigerian market once again. As is usual, the banking and insurance sectors continue to lead from a volume point of view. Yesterday, we actually saw significant volumes on Zenith Bank, which from our point of view is probably some level of major realignments in the ownership of that vehicle. And we might continue to see such huge volumes in the banking sector going into the June reporting period. Interesting times. I still continue to think that the risk to the Nigerian market is on the upside, and for obvious reasons. The banks are putting margin trade lenders or margin borrowers under significant selling pressures at the moment, and that will continue to underpin any long-term growth in the Nigerian stock market.
Well, banks still under pressure, and we know that the catalyst everyone's waiting for is the formation of the asset management company. In the meantime, it's the food and beverages sector that's seeing extreme investor appetite. I mean, this is as a result of investors on the one hand, adopting a more defensive strategy at a still very uncertain time, but also because we're seeing them remaining pretty resilient through it all. What's your view on that space at the moment?
Well, I mean, if you recall, in the last 6 to 12 months, I've always preached a defensive portfolio stance for investors. For obvious reasons, the food and beverage sector will continue to benefit, and I'll probably include the brewery sector in that defensive list for the Nigerian market. These companies have garnered quite a lot of efficiencies during the very difficult economic environments we had in the previous 10-15 years. And those efficiencies are beginning to pay off now. They've tried to find alternative power sources. They've been able to align their supply chain, and that's beginning to filter through the sort of numbers that we're seeing from them. For obvious reasons, that's a sector that would continue to grow given the population growth we have in Nigeria. And you know, population growth is something that a lot of people haven't focused attention on. But it perhaps will be one of the biggest challenges for Nigeria over the next 20 to 50 years. Well, you need to feed this huge population.
Well, certainly we've got some news keeping things ticking with all of that having been said. I mean, Nigerian Breweries has announced for one that it sees its first quarter pre-tax profit rising to, sitting at 11.7 billion naira. That is a slight drop from where we saw it a year ago, but it is expecting a rise in turnover. I mean, how have the markets taken to that announcement?
Well, I think the market has taken to that announcement. Alicia, the key issue here is this. The market has reduced earnings expectations across board, not just for the banking sector. So if companies like Nigerian Breweries are able to perform even flat numbers from 2009 levels, we will see investors actually react positively to such news. The key issue for us is going forward, what is the direction, what do the organizations or what do the companies see going forward from a revenue and a bottom line point of view. A lot of that will be driven by the strategy that the organizations are able to put in place, even in a declining market. Companies like Nigerian Breweries, Guinness, flour mills would always continue to come up tops on my list because from a strategic point of view, they're very clear about their markets, they're very clear about the strong products, and they continue to push those products. As long as we continue to have the sort of economic environment that we're dealing with today, those companies will continue to have strong performance going forward. So my immediate reaction is that, look, the market will react positively to flat numbers from 2009 levels.
If we take a look at Nigerian breweries specifically, because it is a concrete example we can use. I mean, brewers say there are rich expansion prospects in Africa, where capita beer consumption ranges from single-digit litres in some nations to nearly 60 litres in wealthier countries, and some of those wealthier countries, South Africa and Gabon as well. Do you see regional strategy becoming more of a focus for these players to take advantage of that opportunity?
Most definitely. I think, especially for companies like Nigerian Breweries, Guinness, who already have very well-established brands. Nigerian Breweries has brands in Nigeria that are more local than international brands, and those brands have gained quite a notoriety, amongst consumers of that product. And I believe that over time, as we get to some saturation point in the Nigerian market, even those companies will start to look at some form of regional expansion. But the challenge for most of them is most of these guys actually are part of larger global conglomerates. So which means that to some extent, there's already some level of regional coverage of their products.
Yeah.
But what I see possibly from the likes of the Nigerian breweries is introducing their local products, say like a Star, for example, to the international market. That I see as possible. But in terms of actually starting up businesses or starting up production lines in those markets, to a large extent, from a global point of view, the business is already focused on that region. But I see maybe to a lighter extent some level of increased M&A activity in that sector.